Welcome back, my students. Dr. Oogway here, and today I bring you CSF and its circulation and how to write this question in your university exams. This is the video from the playlist of the meninges of the brain and the cerebrospinal fluid, which is the chapter 2nd from the Neuroanatomy book of BDC. Clear? This question, CSF and its circulation, we will study it under the 5 headings, that's introduction, then formation, then circulation, then functions, and clinical anatomy of CSF. CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. So let's begin with the first topic, first heading, that's introduction. Clear? So what do we study in introduction? First, what is CSF? CSF is modified tissue fluid. Modified tissue fluid. Clear? Number second point, it is present in ventricular system of brain. Ventricular system and subarachnoid spaces. Subarachnoid spaces. Clear? So it's present in ventricular system. We know we have lateral ventricle, we have third and fourth ventricle. Clearly? So introduction, it is modified tissue fluid. It is present in ventricular system of brain and in subarachnoid spaces. So introduction to the CSF is clear. Now we talk about its formation. So number second heading is formation. Formation of CSF. Formation of CSF. It is derived from choroid plexus of lateral ventricle, third ventricle, and fourth ventricle. Clearly? So choroid plexus of lateral ventricle, third ventricle, and fourth ventricle forms CSF. This choroid plexus of lateral ventricle has maximum contribution. Clearly, it is also formed by CSF is also formed by ependymal cells which line ventricles. Lining ventricles. This third, lateral, and fourth ventricle. Clearly, so CSF formation, it is derived from choroid plexus of lateral ventricle, third ventricle, and fourth ventricle. It is also produced minimally by ependymal cells which lines the ventricles. Clearly, maximum contribution from the choroid plexus. What is this choroid plexus? This choroid plexus is derived from tela choroideae. Clearly, what is this tela choroideae? It is just a tuft of capillaries. Clearly, so second heading, formation of CSF is complete. Now we talk about the most important. So in formation, it is formed from choroid plexus of lateral, third, and fourth ventricle. CSF is minimally formed by ependymal cells which lines the ventricles. Clearly, now we talk about this third heading, that's circulation. Third heading is circulation. This is extremely important, so pay attention. Circulation of CSF. We know CSF is formed by choroid plexus of lateral ventricle. So it is formed in lateral ventricle maximally. Clearly, then from lateral ventricle it moves to the third ventricle. And from third ventricle it goes to the fourth ventricle. Clear? From lateral ventricle to the third ventricle, it goes via interventricular foramen or foramen of Monro. From third ventricle, it goes to the fourth ventricle via cerebral aqueduct of Sylvius. Clearly, from fourth ventricle, it goes to the central canal of spinal cord. Clearly, it goes via central canal of spinal cord. From fourth ventricle, it also goes via three apertures. In which two apertures are lateral and one aperture is median. Clearly, these two lateral apertures are called as foramen of Luschkas. This one median aperture is called as the foramen of Magendie. Clearly, so CSF from the fourth ventricle goes to the central canal of spinal cord. CSF from the fourth ventricle also goes via three apertures. In these three apertures, two apertures are lateral. These are called foramen of Luschkas, and one aperture is medial. It's called as the median aperture or foramen of Magendie. From the median aperture or the foramen of Magendie, it goes to the cisterna magna. What is cisterna magna? It is a enlarged subarachnoid space. Clearly, from the cisterna magna, it goes to the veins of spinal cord. Clearly, now from these two lateral apertures or foramen of Luschkas, CSF goes to the cerebellopontine cistern. What is the cerebellopontine cistern? It is also a enlarged subarachnoid space. Clear? From cerebellopontine cistern, the CSF goes to the tentorial notch From the tentorial notch, it goes to the inferior surface of cerebrum. Inferior surface of cerebrum. From the inferior surface of cerebrum, clearly. So here from the cerebellopontine cistern, which is the subarachnoid space, CSF goes to the tentorial notch. From the tentorial notch, it goes to the inferior surface of cerebrum. From inferior surface of the cerebrum, it goes to the superior lateral surface of cerebrum. From superior lateral surface of cerebrum, it goes to the arachnoid granulations. Arachnoid granulations. From arachnoid granulations, it goes to the superior sagittal sinus. Superior sagittal sinus. This arachnoid granulation, it absorbs CSF. So CSF is absorbed by arachnoid granulations into superior sagittal sinus. So this is the circulation of the CSF. One quick recap of circulation of CSF. CSF from the lateral ventricle goes to the third ventricle via interventricular foramen or foramen of Monro. CSF from the third ventricle goes to the fourth ventricle via cerebral aqueduct of Sylvius. CSF from the fourth ventricle goes to the central canal of spinal cord. It also goes via three apertures, two apertures which are lateral, also called as foramen of Luschkas. It goes to the cerebellopontine cistern, which is a enlarged subarachnoid space. From cerebellopontine cistern, it goes to the tentorial notch. From tentorial notch, it goes to the inferior surface of cerebrum. From there, it goes to the superior lateral surface of cerebrum. From there, it is absorbed by arachnoid granulations into the superior sagittal sinus. Similarly, another aperture, that's one median aperture, also called as foramen of Magendie. CSF goes to the cisterna magna, which is a large subarachnoid space. From cisterna magna, CSF goes to the veins of spinal cord. So this is the circulation of CSF. Remember this flowchart? Very simple. So introduction is clear, formation is clear, circulation is clear. Now we talk about the functions and clinical anatomy of CSF. Simple. Clear? So let's begin with functions. You yourself know these. I'm pretty sure you know these. You know this heading. Function. CSF, it decreases sudden pressure on nervous system. Sudden pressure or force on nervous system. Clearly, so whenever there is a sudden pressure or force on nervous system, it is decreased by the CSF. Simple. This is a function number first. Function number second, nervous system nourishment. Nervous system is nourished by this CSF, because CSF comes in contact with the CSF comes in contact with neurons. Blood is not in contact with neurons, so CSF nourishes these neurons. Clearly, this is the function number second. Now we talk about the function number third. Clearly, these neurons, they need glucose, they need oxygen, which it is provided by CSF. Clearly, number fourth function, pineal gland. Pineal gland. Pineal gland secretions must reach pituitary gland. So these secretions reach pituitary gland through a medium, that is CSF. This is another function. Number fifth function, it cushions brain. Clearly, brain there is a cushion effect which is provided by CSF. Clearly, there's a function fifth, function seventh, function sixth. Clearly, function sixth. Clear? So let's no CSF brain barrier. Clearly, there is no CSF brain barrier. CSF is in contact with brain, there is no barrier. So as a result, drugs can reach to neurons. Drugs can reach neurons via CSF. Why drugs can reach neurons via CSF? Because there is no CSF brain barrier. There is no barrier between these two. While as there is CSF blood barrier. There is a barrier between CSF and blood. There's a barrier between CSF and blood. So no antibodies in central nervous system, because there is a CSF and blood barrier. There, clear? So this is the function 6 of the CSF. Clear? These 6 functions, very simple functions. Now let's begin. Now let's move on to the clinical anatomy. Clinical anatomy of CSF. Clearly, number first we will study in clinical anatomy Froehlich syndrome. That is also known as loculation syndrome. Clearly, what is the cause of this Froehlich syndrome or the loculation syndrome? It is because of the obstruction. Of vertebral canal. Whenever there is a obstruction of vertebral canal, it results in Fryns syndrome or loculation syndrome. What is its manifestations? Its first manifestation is xanthochromia. 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 Clearly, what is the xanthochromia? It is yellow discoloration of CSF. Yellowish discoloration of CSF. Below obstruction. Below obstruction. Clearly, so first clinical anatomy point is Fryns syndrome, that's also known as loculation syndrome. It is because of the obstruction of the vertebral canal. Below the obstruction, there is yellowish discoloration of CSF, that's called as xanthochromia. Another manifestation of Fryns syndrome is albuminocytologic dissociation. Clearly, in albuminocytologic dissociation, there is normal cell count, but there is increase in protein content. Clearly, so another manifestation of the Fryns syndrome is albuminocytologic dissociation, where there is normal cell count but there is increase in protein content. Clearly, because of this increase in protein content, the CSF coagulates on withdrawal. Clearly, this CSF coagulates on withdrawal because there is increase in protein content. Clearly, this is the first clinical point, anatomy point. Number second clinical anatomy point, we'll go with the hydrocephalus. What is hydrocephalus? It is dilation of this ventricular system. Clear? Why this dilation of ventricular system occurs? It occurs because of the obstruction in CSF circulation. Whenever there is a obstruction in CSF circulation, dilation of ventricular system occurs, which results in hydrocephalus. This hydrocephalus is of two types: communicating hydrocephalus and non-communicating hydrocephalus. Clear? In communicating hydrocephalus, there is obstruction outside ventricular system. Clearly, in non-communicating hydrocephalus, there is obstruction inside ventricular system. Clearly, so this is about the hydrocephalus. What is hydrocephalus? It is the dilation of the ventricular system. Why is it dilated? Why is ventricular system dilated? It occurs because of obstruction of CSF circulation, because of tumor or other causes. Clearly, CSF circulation. Clearly, so hydrocephalus can be of two types. It can be communicating hydrocephalus or non-communicating hydrocephalus. Communicating hydrocephalus when the obstruction is outside ventricular system. Non-communicating hydrocephalus when the obstruction is inside ventricular system. Clearly, this communicating hydrocephalus is also called as the external hydrocephalus, while as non-communicating hydrocephalus is also known as internal hydrocephalus. Clearly, so this completes our CSF topic. So 5 headings: introduction clear, formation clear, circulation clear, functions clear, and clinical anatomy clear. The last clinical anatomy that we studied was the hydrocephalus. You can see this is the hydrocephalus patient, hydrocephalus child. You can see this is the brain. The brain is enlarged because its ventricular system is enlarged. You can see here, this is the scan, this is the ventricular system, and this is the enlarged ventricular system. Clearly, this enlarged ventricular system is reflected here. Clearly, so this is the CSF and its circulation under these 5 headings. Thank you, your Dr. Oogway.